All right. So I'm here with my father, Raymond DeVito. We are using this life story kit, and this is a good way to interview someone to just see their story. All right. First card, we're going to start with early life. What did you learn from your father?
I learned about hard work, physical work, from a person that wasn't very tall or very big, but he was very strong. And I was always impressed with that.
Okay. What are your most memorable stories of your father?
All right. One of the most memorable stories, well, there's a couple.
Well, go, tell them.
I'll tell you the first one. I remember when I was hit by the car when I was in third grade, and they took me to the hospital. And my dad and mother didn't take me, but the people that hit me in the car took me.
Yeah.
And while there, my father and mother showed up. And my father, I never saw this, and it's most memorable. He was crying when he saw me. And the reason why, some old guy that saw me get hit told him that I was bleeding from the mouth. Well, I wasn't. I was bleeding from my scar. Mm-hmm. But my father was crying. He was so relieved to see that it was just a scar that he was actually crying. And I could still see that today.
And he thought you had internal injuries or something.
Yeah, he thought I was going to be dead. The other thing I remember about him, my father had his little finger crushed on a piece of equipment. He worked in construction, of course, and the little finger was crushed. So they removed it and also did some trimming of the bone in the hand. And the day he came home from the hospital, my mother hears him down in the basement hammering, using a hammer. And she went down to see what was up and gave him heck, of course. And he said, I got to know whether I can use this hand.
Right.
So I had to try it.
Yeah, makes sense.
That was very memorable.
Yeah.
And there were others, but that's enough for now.
Okay. I always think of the story of, I don't really remember my grandfather. He died when I was 2, so I always think of the story when he lost his paycheck.
Oh yeah. My dad, before he was married, belonged to a club in East Liberty, and the club was located on Meadow Street. And my dad apparently used to gamble at playing poker. And the one day, at that time, you received your paycheck in cash, in an envelope. He came home, and my mother was pregnant with me at the time. He said, Bertha, I lost my money. She said, you lost your money? Where'd you lose your money? He said, I lost it on Meadow Street. The next thing he knew, my mother was putting on her coat. It was, I guess, wintertime. And he said, where are you going? And she said, we're going to Meadow Street to see if we could find your money. And of course, he had to fess up and tell her he really lost it playing
Gambling on Meadow
gambling,
Street.
playing cards on Meadow Street.
Right, right. All right, you may already cover this one, but describe your father. And then you want to talk about him coming to America, or
Yeah, he came to this country as a 16-year-old because the American embassy, knowing he was an American citizen, alerted them that Mussolini wouldn't care and he'd be inducted into the army.
mm-hmm.
So he came here as a 16-year-old, went to live with his uncle in Utica, New York, and his Uncle John, and he recalls every day at supper, Uncle John would start his little litany about, I don't have enough kids here. Now I got another one I got to feed. So he said he heard that one time too many. So he decided that he would leave and go to Pittsburgh. He went to Pittsburgh because the daughter of Arcangelo was his old girlfriend in Italy. And of course, she died shortly after he came to Pittsburgh.
What'd she die of?
I don't even know. I never found out. But anyhow, that's how he got to Pittsburgh.
Okay, and we'll get to the story of your parents meeting a little later.
All right.
But a couple cards on your mom here, and then we'll go to eat.
All right.
So, well, that one doesn't really work for Grandma because she didn't work, right? What did your mother do before having children? Well, do you want to talk about her upbringing, or?
My mother was an orphan. She was in an orphanage, and she was there pretty much right until she met my father and they married. So she didn't do much of anything in the orphanage. And she was married at age, she was 21 when I was born. 20, she was probably 20.
Okay. What are your most memorable stories about your mother?
My mother was a nervous wreck all of her life. Probably had to do with her early origins. She lost her mother at age 5 and ended up in the orphanage. And she was in the orphanage because she was one of 5 girls. And I guess the state came in and took them away from my grandfather.
He was working in the mine. And
yeah, he was a coal miner and couldn't take care of them. And probably the smartest thing they could have done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how she ended up an orphan. All right, go ahead.
So you think that's why she was a nervous person forever?
Oh, she was a nervous person forever. Her father, tragically, didn't marry again, but he found a black woman and he lived with her forever. My mother's oldest sister Sister Lucy was her name, decided that it would be better if they were married. So she got a priest to go and talk to them. And once the priest saw she was a black woman, he said, "I'll just bless you. You don't have to be married." All right.
Tells you the sign of the times, right?
Yeah, that was Grandma Beulah.
Okay.
I never knew her, of course.
All right, one last one on Grandma. So what did you learn from your mother? How to be nervous.
I learned, how to be nervous, but I also learned she was just filled with love for her family. She couldn't do enough for all of us. She loved to cook and was a great cook, and I learned love from her.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Pop.
Okay.
Let's go eat.
Let's
Part
go.
1 is done.